According to Diana Suomi, an article writer from Amelia Earhart, The Turbulent Life of an American Icon, published June 2011 in History Today, quote, asking why she was attempting such a flight, she replied, because I want to. She was 40 and a legend, in her lifetime as a fearless aviator, a breaker of records, a champion of feminists in all their endeavors, end quote. As you probably know, Amelia Earhart was an inspiration for all women across the world. She completed things men and women at her time would have never thought to complete. She was the definition of feminism. Hi y'all, my name is Mary Beth Stephenson, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the life of Amelia Earhart. Today in my speech we're going to be talking about Amelia Earhart. First we'll talk about her childhood, second we'll talk about her adulthood and what led her to love aviation, and lastly we'll talk about the disappearance and death of Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was born July 24th, 1897 in Kansas. As a child, she was known as very adventurous, and she had an independent nature. Her mother came from an affluent family, and her father was a railroad lawyer. Her dad struggled with alcoholism, which led her family into a financial struggle, and Amelia and her sister Muriel would go to live with their grandparents. She graduated from high school in Chicago. She was very good in chemistry, and so she went on to junior college. She soon left junior college to become a nurse's aide in Toronto in the war. There she would talk to wounded pilots, which would kind of spark her interest in flight, and in her free time she would watch the Royal Flying Corps in a practice field nearby. After college, she went back to college to Columbia University, soon moved home to her parents in California, where she took her first airplane ride, which sparked the idea for her to take lessons. She would work many jobs and make lots of money so she could take jobs from the famous Anita Snook, which was a female aviation. She bought her first plane, and then 2 years later she got her pilot's license, and she was the 16th woman to receive her pilot's license in the nation, which is insane. She wrote articles in the local newspaper, making her a local celebrity, and which kind of led to the uprising of Amelia Earhart. Now that we've talked about her childhood, let's elaborate on Amelia Earhart's adulthood. In 1928, Amelia Earhart will receive a phone call asking if she wanted to be one of the first women to fly the transatlantic. She went to New York for an interview where she got interviewed and selected, and so she took off from Trespassy Harbor, Newfoundland, with a group called Friendship. It was her and two other men, pilot Wilmer Schultz and co-pilot Lewis Gordon. It was a 20-hour, 40-minute flight. They landed in the UK. Soon they came home to the U.S., where she said that she kind of felt useless, almost like a sack of potatoes, she said, and that one day she wanted to try it alone. But the press still dubbed her Lady Lindy, which is the derivative of Lucky Lind. On May 20th, 1932, she was the first woman to fly the Atlantic solo. It was a 15-hour voyage, and when she took off, she received immediate difficulties, thick clouds, ice on the wings, and conditions only got worse for her. So she found a new place to land, which was a small pasture in Northern Ireland. This flight established her a local hero, and from 1930 to 1935, she would receive 7 women's speed and distance aviation records in a variety of aircrafts. Now that we've talked about Amelia Earhart's childhood and adulthood, let's elaborate on the disappearance and death of Amelia Earhart. As you know, Amelia Earhart wanted to be one of the first persons to circumnavigate the world, which would result in the disappearance on July 2nd, 1937. She took off with Fred Noonan in a twin-engine plane for a 29,000-mile flight. She stopped to refuel a few times along the way, but on July 2nd, she took off her final destination, the final time she refueled, to Highland Island, which was a 2,600-mile. This was known to be hard for them because the island was so small, but they had 2 U.S. ships that were brightly lighting the way with lights to make sure they would stay on the right track. She was heard to have radioed that she was running out of fuel, and then the final radio that she radioed in, which was an hour before she was seen to disappear, she says they were in clouds and they think they were headed north and south when they were supposed to be headed south and west. And so that was the last transmission received, and they are thought to have gone down 20 miles from the island, sadly. An extensive search took off, but on July 19, 1937, it was called off and the duo was determined lost at sea. As Lisa Shaw, an article writer from Amelia Earhart's life and disappearance, though Amelia Earhart disappeared 80 years ago while trying to circumnavigate the globe in an airplane, controversy still surrounds her fate. published in September 2017 in New American, stated, "The truth of the disappearance of Earhart Noonan may never be known, as the questions surrounding this monumental mystery seem to outnumber any answers to be had." End quote. So there was many theories, and her husband, of course, worked his whole life, or most of his life, to try to find her. But people still think of Amelia Earhart as a piece of history, even though she was a woman who made history for a lot of women in aviation. So in conclusion, we talked about Amelia Earhart's life. We first talked about her childhood and growing up and the struggles she went through. And secondly, we talked about her adulthood, which was college and kind of getting into aviation. And then finally, we talked about her final destination, the disappearance. It's still a question of Amelia Earhart, but she is still one of the best renowned pilots. Thank you all so much for listening.